Good morning. This is the Just Listen, hosted by George live podcast. It's about 7:41 a.m. And like I told you, I've got some other things going on. So I wanted to go ahead and bring you the latest and the greatest early Monday at 10 a.m. I'm going to do the regular podcast. I think I've got everything in place that I need to start broadcasting at 10 a.m. I am very interested in what you think. So we're going to start that and get some great interaction. And then we're going to excite this part of Illinois, and you're going to be in the know in local, state elections, and the governor's race. All right. So before we get into the local and state stuff, I wanted to mention something to you. This is just an observation. That's all that it is. Back it's been about 10 or 15 years ago, there was a quarterback named Tom Tebow. I think he played in Florida, and he was a Heisman Trophy winner, and he went into the NFL. And at that point, he became a public person. So when he started playing, he professed his his faith, and I thought that that was a good thing. What surprised me was the reaction from some others, and I'm not going to be specific there, just in general, that people didn't necessarily like that he was saying that. And if you look at a couple of other things going on in the world without not being too specific, when people are professing their faith in public, the general population's reaction is just a little strange to me that they don't embrace it. Some people do. They do it quietly. They'll say like one or two statements and then they'll move on. So we all know what's going on now, and this is my opinion that when currently people come on TV, and boy, they're so happy about their faith, and I'm excluding clergy because that's just what they do. Well, it seems like that, especially the last 5 or 6 years, the general population just reacts in an adverse fashion. And it's almost like if you are a celebrity, if you're in the public, even like being on the news and stuff like that, my opinion is you really have to watch how many times you talk about your religious beliefs and stuff like that, because it just seems like people just take it the wrong way, and then they get something in their head about reaching out to you, doing something to you, and all of those types of things. What we really need to do is be respectful of other people, and more people other than me who are greater influencers need to say that. And people make other comments, but it just seems like when you are professing your faith and you just keep talking about it, um, things happen to you. Like with the quarterback I'm talking about, his career ended pretty quick. And with some of the others that I've seen out there, people just come after them so bizarre and so deadly that it's scary. I predict in the next 5 years, anyone that's in the public light is going to have security on their family because they're not going to know what they've said to um, upset someone to the point that they want to do harm to them or their family. So I made that pretty generic. I think that the audience knows what I'm talking about. So just the next couple of months, weeks, and years, see that from the perspective of if people are professing their faith in public and they keep talking about it, what happens? Okay, so we're going to pivot to the local and state elections here in Illinois. The legislature is actually out of session until February 7th. So they'll be back in about a week and a half. I did go and look and see what they're working on, and apparently there's just a lot of stuff out there. There's not much about reducing taxes for anyone. And like I previously told you, um, their priorities are other things that I have talked about before. So that part is interesting. So going with my first uh, segment of talking about if I were running for governor and what the legislature is doing, uh, as I stated, the big thing that they're doing that could probably get some traction is they're looking at prescription drugs. Although I think that the approach is strange to me, um, but that is a topic that any candidate that's running for governor should be very, very interested in. And I started talking about the affordability of it. And as you saw or heard from my last show, that it is very expensive. And even when I was in the workplace, my cost share of it would have been probably for family, $300 to $400 a month. And so I thought that that was a good price because the companies that I work for were paying part of it as well. But what we have to realize, and even I think more so the politicians, just because you have great insurance doesn't mean that the other person has the same insurance. A lot of people are part-time workers. They're not getting 40 hours and all of those things. Now, the state has tried to help people with that. I just think that the approach needs to change to include more people. And I've actually been foot stomping that you need to help the people who make a little bit more money, who are working their butts off, and also who are trying to raise a family. And I previously told you, even back in the 80s, some people came into the military just to have their children. And then after 4 years, they would get out. I think that that's a great idea because you're serving your country and you're getting something out of it as well. So there is leeway for healthcare that way. That's just an example. So, like I said, out of pocket burden is 3 and 5, 58% of Illinois adults report experience healthcare affordability. And I mentioned that last time, but that is critical because we need to get the rates down of how much you pay up front, and then after that, the healthcare costs pop in after that. Maybe whoever's running for governor work with the legislature and these insurance companies for them to lay out why things are just so expensive and why the monthly rates are just astronomical. Even at the national level, there has been no discussion with insurance companies to why it's so expensive, even when they're getting money from the federal government. And in Illinois, that's going to be really important because, as I previously have told you, if we're not getting federal funds, guess what? They're going to have to raise the taxes on someone. Now, we do have the Medicaid spending, or yes. And so for fiscal year 2023, state and federal spending on Illinois Medicaid reached 33.3 billion, or about $2,600 per resident. Now, remember who that includes. So there needs to be a concerted effort to get Medicaid and also some of these other federal funds back coming into the state. And that needs to be a priority, whoever is running for governor of Illinois, because that will resonate with constituents and they will vote for that. Because as I previously told you, the priorities right now are not that. And once we get through the primary, you're going to see the Republican and Democrat lay out their platforms, because apparently for the primary, it just seems like that on the Republican side, no one is really putting out ads. Haven't seen, I think I've seen one candidate, and I told you that. And it is my belief that they're in the process of raising money now. And so we don't know who the candidate is going to be. And also, you cannot just wait for somebody to go out to your website. In Illinois, at least, you need to be aggressive and you need to get your name out there. Maybe a platform like I do. Hey, I'm running for governor. This is what I'm doing. Maybe do some reels. Now, these guys are smart and they have people who are work for them, like campaign managers and stuff like that. I just in this region just seems like we get ignored until the end. Like we're going to vote for a Republican candidate with no information. And I remember last cycle, I had to go and just search for information. So something like healthcare is just very, very important and it needs to be talked about. I talked about it a little bit here, but there are some obvious things that could be changed right away. And the bottom line is people running for governor on the Republican side need to be talking about this and taxation nonstop, because the current governor has a track record of what his actual priorities are. Okay, so we'll talk more about healthcare because there will be new information coming out. Uh, I looked at what's on the docket for the legislature, and it's not much about stuff like that. Okay, so with the healthcare access, we talked about that. Let's talk again about energy reliability and data centers. Okay, so if you are watching the news, you have seen that data centers, and I previously mentioned this, I touched upon it a little bit, but I want to talk about it a little bit more and the positive effects of data centers. And obviously, most of what I've heard is about the St. Louis area, but there was an effort to get a data center in one of the rural areas of Illinois. And I would say the positive thing is it's going to bring in jobs, and it's going and good paying jobs. And also, as far as the network infrastructure goes, it helps us in that aspect too, that when we are generating traffic on the information super highway, we have the information pool that's going to come from the the place that's the closest to you. And also, we need to leverage ourselves to compete with the world, because it could be in the future we are getting information from Canada or from Mexico because we don't have the infrastructure in place. Now, energy is what's being used to get voters to change their mind. Okay, so it does require a lot of energy, but so does everything now, because the strategy has been to get rid of fossil fuels, meaning coal too, and gas. And they have initiatives in Illinois for reduction, and they call it clean air, whatever name they're going with now. Now, they're not getting federal help anymore because the national policy has changed. That's why in Illinois, if you're buying gas, they are putting all of these taxes on it. And if Governor Pritzker gets back in there, it's going to get even higher. And in this part of Illinois, there is going to be impact. People do not want to ride the buses. We don't have the density of people to justify people taking more public transportation. And also with energy, because they just pumped in Illinois more money into the transit system, even though it favored places like Chicago, probably Springfield, places like that. So those are taxpayer dollars. But if we can start back using coal, natural gas, the prices should go down. And as it relates to these data centers, okay, if we free up more energy, that energy can go to the data center, and it does require it. And then they were talking about water and all of these things. Data centers are not new for the country. What most people don't know is, so I've been in IT for a long time, at least 20 years. We used to call them server rooms, and we would set it up for our business endeavors. And so what happened is, several years ago, uh, companies like Microsoft and Amazon wanted regional data centers that could actually house the business operations of hundreds of companies, because the servers, I mean, humans are smart. Servers can hold a lot of information. Now, I'm not going to get into an IT discussion, but the bottom line is these data centers reduce the cost for businesses. So if their costs are reduced, they can use the money for other things. And hopefully some of them will go and say, hey, okay, let's pay the people more money. That's that's the best case scenario. But you never hear people giving that type of information on it, but that's very important. Data centers are for businesses to run their operations, and they won't have in-house uh, IT sections doing these things. So wherever, and that's with the cloud computing too. Okay, so we keep hearing all of the reasons why we can't do it. So if you want clean, and we're talking about the windmills and all that stuff, why can't there be a balance of that? Why do we have to get rid of all of the fossil fuels? So, as voters in Illinois, energy reliability is very, very important from the perspective of if currently we're just doing all electric and the data supports this, when you blend in the data centers, we're not going to have the money to pay for the data centers because they're saying that they take up too much energy. So what they're going to do is they're going to in Illinois, they're going to threaten you with probably blackouts, and then they're going to say that you had to pay more in electricity because they're already talking about this or hinting at it to make up the difference since the the energy companies didn't plan. They said that they planned, but they're going to need more infrastructure, or as like California, you're going to have to buy energy. See, if California would have used the money for infrastructure from, well, if the electric companies would have done that, they would have had plenty of power. And oh, by the way, we buy energy in the United States from Canada. So why can't we lead the charge and not only make energy affordable for people, but if we set up the right infrastructure, we can actually sell it to other states as well that are not planning. And so the big the big picture is, what are our priorities? Are we looking for opportunities to bring in more business into the state so that the baseline of taxation can go down? Currently, we seem to be dependent on taxpayers paying taxes and increasing that on goods and services to make up the gaps for the bad planning. And we're going to lose the opportunity for these data centers if we keep going in the direction in the state that we're going. And data centers are great opportunities for the state, and they have lots of benefits. But you have to decide that based on some of the facts that I've just given you. Okay, so we talked about IA this week at the federal level, and there's some more court cases out there. And I actually alluded to that. Now, AI and energy are related because we are hearing now that the data centers are going to be used for AI endeavors too. However, what I've told you is also true, that a lot of the bandwidth from these data centers is going to be for businesses in the area to put their IT needs, business, on there to run their companies. And somehow, the last several years, actually, the last 2 or 3 years, AI has been used to, with these algorithms that people requested, the government requested the DEI ones. That's a fact. And so that's why people are afraid of it based on a decision that was made at the federal level. And so, as a voter, you need to uh, ask yourself the question: was it really needed? What was the point of it if we're going to end up fearing it? And as I stated previously, next week, the focus I think that should be on AI is when it takes away people's jobs. Because when we were so laser focused on the pushback from folks, because those algorithms were being made looking for specific things that really turn people off to the technology. And also, there somebody directed people to make these algorithms that would for counseling and for AI friends that would talk people into killing themselves, which is totally wrong. And the tool should never be used for that. And maybe we need to spend some time figuring out who is doing that, who is directing that, and focus more on it not taking the jobs. And the jobs pay very, very well. Of why we're not more focused on saving jobs from AI versus all of these social issues that were injected by some of our fellow citizens. This is Just Listen Live, hosted by George. Have a great weekend, and we will see you with the interaction on Monday. And it will be at 10 a.m. And I'm going to be asking you guys all kinds of questions. Have a great weekend.